Hello, magical people. My name is Lou, and I would like to welcome you back to my channel. This video, I'm going to be touching on a few different subjects. First, I will be discussing the summer solstice, which is right about now when this video is becoming available. So I'm going to be talking about the energy of the summer solstice in a sort of general way, as well as sharing with you all some of the things that I will be doing to acknowledge that energy. I'll also be sharing with you just a little bit about how I've been spending my time, what I've been up to, the projects that I've been working on, what I've been sort of like processing, particularly with regards to my vision for this channel. Also, I will be offering for you a reading. And instead of a traditional like pick a card, this is actually just going to be one reading for the collective. And I trust you to trust yourself and your own discernment, understanding, knowing, and senses to know what messages are meant for you at this time. So as always, take what resonates and leave the rest, particularly when we get to the reading aspect of it. I will be putting timestamps in the description box below so that you can easily navigate to that portion of this video that most piques your interest. I'm not sure how long this video is going to go, and it's entirely possible that the middle part I referred to there, where I'm telling you about what I'm up to personally and is not so much specifically about summer solstice energy, if that part ends up getting really rambly and really long, then I will be deleting it from this video and posting it on its own separate video. So if that's the case, then I'm just leaving a note for my future self to insert a card if applicable. Okay, so thank you, future self. And let's see, that is it. So why don't we just go ahead and dive right into part one. So, the summer solstice, also sometimes known as midsummer, also sometimes known as Letha. I've always just referred to it as the summer solstice, so I'm just going to stick with the language that is most comfortable for myself. A note for those friends and magical people that are in the southern hemisphere, my apologies. Most of this information that I will be talking about with regards to the energy of the solstice is in particular about the summer solstice, which you are not experiencing at this time. So my apologies for neglecting you, but again, I try and speak mostly through the lens of my own experience and understanding. And since I'm in the northern hemisphere, summer solstice it is. So the summer solstice is the longest day of the year. And of course, the longest day of the year is preceded by a slow buildup towards that longest day and a slow recession away from that. So in a larger sense, there is also the season surrounding the summer solstice. And in general, it is a season of light and of fire energy. And all you really have to do is kind of look around to see that this is that energy of expansion and growth. And there's photosynthesis happening all around us. My garden is just popping right now. And that is something that I do plan on rambling about in the next portion. So if you want to hear me talk more about how the garden is popping, then just follow the timestamp to there. But yeah, so it's really easy to see how this energy of light and the transformative energy that is behind that energy of lightness that is pervading us at this time. It's very easy to see grounded ways in which that shows up. And I don't know about you, of course, everybody's experiences are different, and particularly being an AFAB person of middle age, my energy in general is not particularly consistent on a day-to-day level. However, I will say that it is, even knowing that, it's easier to see how during the summer months, during the time of the year when there's a lot of daylight, my sense of energy is overall, on average, much higher than it is during the winter season. So this is a time of doing things and manifesting things and having some real, again, that fire energy of inspiration and expansion and intuition and sort of using the restorative power of the element of fire, right? So one of the other things that we can do is we can, in addition to bringing in growth, we can also use the energy of fire to burn away those things that are no longer serving us and those energies that we'd like to get out of our space. So it's a terrific time to mark the passing of the year from where we were the last solstice, which was the winter solstice, which is the shortest day of the year, and to reflect back between all that's occurred between then and now, as well as continuing to think about what we'd like to put in place as we move towards the next solstice. And in between the now and the winter solstice, of course, we'll have the autumnal equinox in the autumn. So it's a good time for just taking note of where you are, acknowledging the passage of time, and sort of using it as an opportunity to mindfully both look back and look ahead. And in looking back, I am noticing that I forgot to turn down the heat, which I didn't intend to do. I looked ahead, but then I forgot to act because that's how I roll. Okay, now that I have turned the heater off and gotten rid of that background noise, my apologies. Where was I? So it's a great time for both looking back and looking ahead. And this leads me to one of the projects that I have planned that would be part of my personal solstice acknowledgements. And that is the intention cuff. So if you're interested in hearing more about what the intention cuff is and my thoughts and plans behind it, then again, check in the description box below and there will be a timestamp to that portion of the video. This time of year, from the vernal equinox to around now through summer solstice time, is my personal favorite time of year. I find it to be a time of year that is very easy to find magic in the world all around me. I like that being on the cusp of summer and winter and that sort of in-between space. I like to use the summer solstice as a time to celebrate my appreciation for this time of year and all of the gifts that the earth brings to me and that the universe brings to me. I like to imagine that my celebration of the solstice is an energetic gift back to the universe in appreciation for being the recipient of such beauty. Reciprocity, my friends. I guess that's what I'm saying. This particular summer solstice feels perhaps a little bit extra sweet for me in a thoughtful kind of way. I'm really grateful that my mental health is in a very different place from where it was at the winter solstice, and that I can see that without having a lot of unnecessary judgment for the place that I was then. The yard and gardens are particularly beautiful right now, and I, in celebrating this solstice, wanted to make sure that I was incorporating a lot of elements of the garden, because that is something that's a place, or those places, there's various little gardens all around the place, but they are, those are places where I put a lot of energy and spend a lot of time, and this kind of points to another ramble that I'll be getting to a little bit later, which is about sacred spaces and what that means to me, and sort of a little bit about how that has shown up, how those spaces have shown up in my life. So if you want to hear more about that, again, check the timestamp below. But you know, I wanted to make sure that I was able to incorporate some aspects of the garden and where it is right now and all of the beauty in it right now, and bring that into my spiritual practice. So one of the ways in which I will be celebrating the bounty of the garden this summer solstice is by making some summer solstice incense. I went around the yard and just sort of let the plants speak to me a little bit about things that should go into this blend. And I wrote it down when I got back, so I'm going to look at my notes here because it's kind of a long list of just gorgeousness that is just looking, I mean, just look how beautiful that is. And this is a container that used to belong to my Auntie Pam, and it just seemed appropriate because she passed a couple of years ago, but is ever present with me and supportive. Her energy is always very supportive, so I wanted to make sure that I was acknowledging that and my love for her. So anyways, that's why I'm using this heart-shaped container. But so we have here a beautiful collection of things, all that I just picked from my yard. And so we have, let's see, there's rose, calendula, chamomile, purple sage, white sage, mint, catmint, French lavender, English lavender, rosemary, and St. John's wort. So I went and picked some of these. Hopefully with enough time, I might have to put it in the oven to dehydrate a little bit so that it is dry enough to use tomorrow in one of the other things that I'll be talking about here, some spell work that I'm going to be doing. This is the, oh gosh, that smells so good, just fluffing it around just that little bit. Smells so dang good. So anyhow, that is, I wanted to be able to use some of it, so I picked some in advance, but then the other part of that is that I'm going to be kind of going back in the yard and spending some time in the garden tomorrow and pulling some larger pieces and sort of making small bundles. And I'm essentially going to be making these herb bundles that will be imbued with the energy of the summer solstice and set with the intention of being imbued with that energy. And I'm sure some of them will probably be gifts to friends and loved ones and such. And you know, some of them I hope to, we'll see how many I actually get made, but hopefully I'll have at least one or two that I can keep for a literal rainy day. Who knows, maybe there will be some time in the season between the autumnal equinox and the winter solstice when things just, I don't feel like there's enough sunlight energy and summer solstice energy in my life. And so having that available to me and future me, you know, is sort of why I'm creating that. So anyhow, that is one of the projects. I will also be charging some items. Some of you may have heard about using, you know, during a full moon, you can, you know, set out crystals and whatnot to charge in the light of the full moon. And similarly, you can charge things with solar energy. I would be cautious, always safety first, because the sun is a big ball of fire. So if you put something, I generally try and put things, unless I'm making like sun tea or something like that, I will generally try and not put things directly in sunlight because I just don't want to have any accidents happen or accidentally melt a candle or something like that. So anyhow, safety first always. But so I will be charging some items in a sort of similar way to the way one would charge their crystals under the light of the moon. So some of the things that I will be charging are this crystal, which the camera will absolutely not do it justice, so you'll just have to take my word for it. But it is a really pretty crystal that when it catches the light right, There's just millions of little rainbows that live in that crystal, and it lives on my altar, so I feel like it would be a happy recipient of some solar energy. And I also have this little clear crystal quartz, which is just one that I had purchased for myself many years ago. I don't always do this anymore, but a lot of times I will have it in my pocket when I leave the house. And then also just another clear crystal quartz that lives on my altar, and a carnelian disc. So those are some of the things that I will be charging in the sunlight. I also am going to be, that same herb mixture that I told you about that I'm making the incense from, I'm also going to be putting some in some water and not making a tea to consume. I want to use it to set the intention for it to be a way to quickly and easily purify my space. So that's the energy I'm kind of putting with it is, you know, the sun has lots of energies like we talked about, growth, expansion, but there is also an energy of, you know, when we bring something to light, when we bring the light to something, there is a purifying aspect of it. So I want to capture that in a bottle for just household, just day-to-day magic kind of use. Oh, you smell so good. You smell so good. Oh, you my beautiful little friends. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. Just so pretty. So pretty. All those colors. Anyhow. One of the other ways in which I am celebrating just the bounty of the season is by making some strawberry jam. So I went berry picking with a close friend last week and picked many, many June-bearing strawberries, and they have a really high sugar content. They're really good. This is not, this is just freezer jelly, so it's a bit of a less complicated process than a jelly or jam rather that would be shelf stable at room temperature. This is one of those things that needs to be, even before it's opened, needs to be kept in the refrigerator or the freezer. But in the freezer, it'll keep for a year. In the fridge, it's several weeks. And it is so good, that is long enough. I was really happy with it. Very, very simple recipe, and I have eaten quite a bit of it, and I will say it is very yummalama. So some of my friends are, I think, going to be pleasantly surprised by this completely unexpected gift that they are about to get. And then the last big piece of spell work I've got in mind for the summer solstice is an intention cuff. And this is a project that has actually been germinating for quite a while, if I'm being honest. So my original thought was I do leather work, and I wanted to make myself a leather cuff for my wrist that just would have the intention of bringing something to mind, that I was setting my intention in it, and then it was going to be something that I was going to wear, that I would be able to see. And so, you know, it's been kind of, like I said, germinating and sort of gestating in the back of my mind. And now I think it's time to finally take some action with it. So my intention will be to sort of having specific goals or intentions, just a few of them, that will be sort of following the theme of energies and ways that I want to bring energy toward me, as well as things that I want to sort of burn away out of my life and release out of my space. And so I'm going to be just writing a few specific statements on some small pieces of paper, and then with this beautiful incense that I have made for myself, I will be putting that in a small cauldron, which I should have gotten myself a cauldron, which is this little guy right here, just this little cauldron. So I'll be putting some incense in there, and then burning those small slips of paper in the cauldron with my intention set into them, and releasing the energy set by writing those intentions down into the universe. Then, further, I will be collecting some of the ash from those burned up pieces of paper, and mixing it with some olive oil so that I can condition the leather. And I've created a little bit of a sigil as well. That's pretty simple and rudimentary, but again, it's all about the intention behind these things. So I will be taking this ash and oil combination and sort of setting that sigil and those intentions of what I want to be working towards. And I'm still working on the finer details, so I'm not entirely certain of the time frame. But then whether it's until the autumn equinox or whether it's until winter solstice or some other specific time period I have in mind, once those intentions are set into that cuff, then that is, I will wear it. So anyhow, that is my idea for the intention cuff. And I've been thinking about it for a while, and it's on the one hand very simple, but there is a lot of mindfulness that goes into each step of it. And I guess it's that mindfulness, but drawn out and always being brought back to that mindful intention that is set into this leather cuff. I guess that's the purpose of it for myself, because if you are a person who has been following me, which one, so grateful you're here. But if you've followed any of my content, then you are probably aware of the fact that I'm not very good at being consistent for any long span of time. So that is just something I struggle with. It's always something I've struggled with. I mean, maybe through a cognitive function lens, that's just SI8. It's like, it's not that I have it's like I can do it, but it's like the more I try and do it, I don't know, I'm just not good at it. It's like not something I have a lot of conscious control or awareness of, and I don't know. Anyhow, for whatever reasons there are, I do struggle with that whole being consistent for a period of time. So I'm hoping by being mindful, I can at least maybe chunk up some goals into some smaller things, so it's not like I'm trying to say this is how I'm going to be consistent all of the ways. It's more like I'm going to be consistent because I want to reach this specific goal, and that just feels like an easier way to move forward and actually at least potentially achieve success towards reaching those goals. So yeah, those are all of the things that I plan on doing with this summer solstice energy, and I'm curious, what are you all doing? Have you got any rituals that you do, whether they be solstice specifically or just something you like to do around this time of year, like berry picking maybe? Feel free to tell me what you've got going on and share your experiences and your plans with me. I'd always love to hear them. Well, as I suspected might be the case, I did ramble quite a bit, and now it is rather late because, of course, did I procrastinate making this video to the last minute? Maybe. So I am going to save what I've been up to and my thoughts for the channel, etc., and so forth. That update that I referred to previously, I am going to save for another day entirely, and I am going to get right to the collective reading. So I'm going to keep this very, very free form. Like I said, this is going to be just a general reading for the collective, so there will be some messages that are for you and perhaps some that are not for you. So take what resonates and leave the rest. I have here 2 tarot decks and 1 oracle deck, and we are just going to finish shuffling them up and then just start pulling some cards and see what messages want to come through for the collective at this time of the summer solstice. So first we have the 7 of Pentacles, the time for putting in the work and also doing an assessment to see if what we have been doing up till this point is working for us, or if it's time to shift our tactics a little bit. We also have that followed up by the Hierophant, which is really about, I mean, this is one of those cards that has a variety of meanings, but for me, and the message that I really feel is coming through right now, is that this is also a time for you to get your own answers. And coming right on the heels of this Seven of Pentacles and talking about doing an assessment to determine if what's working or if what you've been doing has been working or not, I really feel like this Hierophant energy is showing up in support of that by saying that when you do that assessment, make sure you're actually answering your own questions for yourself and not just putting those questions out there for the world to answer for you and letting the feedback that you get be the sole reason that you make any tweaks or don't make any tweaks. So it's really about like finding your own answers and getting in touch with your own sense of doing that assessment. You know, it's like if there's a thing that you've been working on, for example, and you have been putting in some energy towards it and it's maybe not yielding the results that you want so far. And this can show up in just a huge amount of ways, whether it's an artistic project or maybe you're looking for a job or you're applying to schools or whatever the case may be. It's like that energy of you're putting energy towards something, but you haven't quite gotten what you want yet. And like your own internal compass is telling you that this is just one of those things where I have to just keep putting the effort in and eventually it will pay off. This is just all me leveling up on my skill set in some way. But maybe there's somebody outside of you who's like, haven't you been trying long enough? Aren't you tired of that? These cards are wanting to let you know that it's really important that when you make decisions about these sorts of things that you are sure taking into account and taking into consideration the information that is being fed back to you by other people, but ultimately the goal is to take that information and then still use those as data points, but still making your own choice for your own self about how to move forward. So let's pull an oracle card for that. We have Koi Fish Spirit. There is always enough. And secondarily, so koi fish, okay, so I'm not a biologist. I don't know if this is 100% accurate or not, but I think that I heard somewhere, perhaps prior to the advent of the internet, that koi fish is a type of animal that will only grow as big as it can in the container in which it is living. So if you have a koi fish in a small container in a house versus living in a pond, then the one in the pond, even though they are the same animal, will get to be much bigger. Like I said, I don't know if that's an actual fact or not, but metaphorically, I think that that is an important thing to keep in mind, is that we can only grow as big as the space we allow ourselves to move into is. That was very poorly worded, but if we only imagine that we can have this, that, and the other, while not allowing ourselves to at least entertain the possibility of achieving much more than that, then we are inherently setting up a self-limiting belief that is keeping us smaller. So while it is true that we need to assess and take concrete action steps that will allow us to achieve goals, it is also important to make sure that we try and keep our horizons open. So I think that somebody needed to hear that, and I hope you take it to heart and you find it helpful. Okay, let's pull some more cards and get a next round of messages. All right, so there's two that are coming out there, And we have, oh, interesting. Okay, so we have the Five of Wands, and then we also have the Knight of Pentacles, and they fell out like this. And the first, pardon me, the first message that's coming through is, okay, so Five of Wands is kind of that era of conflict. And, you know, it could be both internal or external, depending on, you know, one's own particular circumstances. But it's that energy of things not flowing well. Like, look at, like, this is just a mess. Like, there's no real coherence there. And if you imagine that the goal of this group of birds in this picture is to do some sort of beautiful synchronized flight, then clearly it's being just completely fouled up. Like, the energy is very discordant, I guess is what I'm saying. But here, the Knight of Pentacles tells us to be steadfast and be slow moving, and to be intentional with the actions that we take and the steps that we make. So again, this is going to show up differently for you know, different folks who see this reading, but like one possible example or potential situation that's coming to mind is that there's something about a situation, whether it's an interpersonal situation or a internal relationship with a concept, there's something that feels very discordant. It's kind of like it's captured your attention and you're just kind of like working in this loop where you're not getting resolution in some way. And of course, when we are in that place, it's uncomfortable. Like I said, it's discordant energy. It's energy that's not flowing. It feels very like, just, yeah, uncomfortable. But sometimes those places of discomfort have important information to us. And so if we can sort of have a little bit of stillness and a little bit of presence within that space of discomfort, or I mean, even if it is argument, you know, even if this is showing up as an argument with another person, then even when we can show up in those moments by being more present, and instead of like, you know, actually getting into a verbal argument with someone, we instead, you know, stay with the discomfort without reacting to the discomfort, then there can be some important information that comes from that. Let's pull another card here. Oh gosh, and 3 came out here. So we have the Moon, the Five of Wands again, and the Two of Wands. Okay, folks, so with 2 different decks, the same card coming out, there is definitely some discordant energy here. And again, it's kind of similar where, like, you know, this is not a cohesive whole that is happening. There's maybe there's some hurt feelings, or there's a potential for some hurt feelings. With the Moon, there's also this, like, things don't feel entirely clear, and it might be that, like, your intuition about a situation is telling you one thing, but you don't really, like, know, because sometimes intuition is like that. It feels very unclear, it feels very mercurial. And then there's this energy of the Two of Wands, which is like that energy of looking forward and setting your intentions. This is really interesting, folks. I'm gonna pull a oracle deck too here, or an oracle card here from the animal deck, and just see what energy comes out. I feel like another energy that is coming through with both of these cards is, okay, so with the Moon, we have the white, I think it's a dog or a wolf, and then the black one on the other side. So there's this sense of duality, of there being 2 sides of a situation, for example. And also we have the 2 showing up again with this Two of Wands, and this person, the protagonist in this picture, being in between the Two of Wands. And there is also, like, there's some real similarity between these two cards. There is both a sense of stillness, a sense of looking forward, of setting your intentions about where you actually want to go. And like one of the, it's one of like a phrase that's just coming to mind right now is the fight really worth it? Like, what is it about the thing that's really bothering you? It might not be anything that has to do with the other person. It might be something that is like an internal discordance that another person is just pushing on, if this is an interpersonal thing, and that whether it's an internal situation or an external situation, a lot can be gained from you moving with intention through the situation. And then the animal oracle that had come out is the beaver spirit, lay a solid foundation. And so again, I feel like there's that energy of like earthiness and of building something with intention. So yeah, I guess, you know, for anybody that needs to hear it, like if there's situations that either internally or externally making you feel triggered in some way, then like it's okay for you to have those feelings, and always honor whatever your feelings are, because they are information for you. But just because we have feelings about a thing or have not a perfect understanding of thing that feels uncomfortable to us internally, just because that is the case doesn't mean that, oh shoot, I lost the thread. I have retained the thread, or regained the thread. Just because we have discordance internally or externally doesn't mean that we have to act based on that information. It may just be that the universe is calling on us to be aware of what our reactions and responses are, and have a moment of self-inquiry around that. So, okay, let's pull another round of messages. This is fun. I kind of like doing it this way. Okay, we have two cards that came out. Ah, interesting. We had the Five of Cups, and we also have the Queen of Pentacles. And the first message that's coming to mind is that there's been something that has been disappointing, and this is an invitation for you to heal that energy and take the transformative energy that is being offered to you from coming out of that experience. And it's like, if there's been something that has been disappointing, or if there's been a loss or something that has brought sadness or grief to you, then this is an opportunity for you to really take care of yourself. You know, like the Queen of Pentacles is a queen of the material world. She has a real understanding of what self-care can look like, and she's a very contemplative and gentle queen, in my opinion. And that energy is you know, can really, you know, I feel like we often hear the phrase, and I know I often say it myself, that we are our own worst enemy. And the invitation with this message is to be your own best friend, and to be your best caretaker, and really love yourself through this situation that is bringing a sense of hurt or harm or loss. We also have here the Eight of Swords, which is kind of the energy of feeling like we can't move beyond where we actually are, and yet that's not actually true. It's like, this is very much the energy of like self-limiting beliefs and, you know, sort of like, here, this is a great depiction of it. If you look in the mirror, or, you know, the protagonist looking in the mirror, the image that she is seeing is that she's bound, and, you know, that there are birds flying around her just waiting to, you know, eat her as she dies out there in what looks to be a very sunny hut place. And the reality, though, is that she is completely unbound, and she looks to be in relative physical comfort. So again, this is less a situation of being the reality of like, oh, I'm fucked, and more that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm fucked, without actually having a bad situation be present. So this can be like maybe anxiety, or like maybe this situation that has, you know, been disappointing to you has brought up some other just like shadow aspects of yourself that you're just feeling are right in front of you. And again, you know, there's just this invitation here to allow yourself to heal from the situation, and don't get in the way of your own self. You know, whatever that process looks like for you, try to have a lack of judgment for yourself and some care and compassion for where you are, and just knowing that this will be another situation you will come through. And we have to support that, the dove spirit, to just be peace. And with peace, there isn't judgment. There is just an acceptance of what is, and the knowledge that all things change. So, my magical friends, I feel like there have been hopefully some messages that have been helpful to you. I thank you so much for being here, and stay tuned for whenever I get around to doing that second part where I ramble about what I've been up to. Who knows what I've been up to? Might be completely freaking different by then. But until then, please don't forget to be kind and gentle with yourself. Please do feel free to share your stories, or if you have questions. If you want a personal reading, the information to do that will also be in the description box below. I should have said all this at the beginning. Please like and subscribe. Dang it. I should be better at this by now, but I'm not. I am where I am, and you are where you are, and there's nothing wrong with any of that. Again, please don't forget to be kind and gentle with yourself, and I will see you soon.